Hello everyone, welcome to the Drucker Forum Barcamp session. The room doesn't actually look like a camp, though, isn't it? So it's rather imperial. Never mind, we're going to do an informal session that we start without any agenda, because you will be putting the agenda on. Let me briefly explain the format. Welcome. Also from my part, my name is Isabella and I have been working with the Peter Drucker Challenge winners, the Talent Award nominees, and the Entrepreneurship School participants that we all have in the room now. And we've prepared this session because we believe that growth happens when there is access to opportunity. And we've just spoken before here with the first ones coming in, that opportunity doesn't necessarily mean that it's comfy, right? So opportunity always looks so grand, but it can also be really challenging. So you participated in a challenge, and here you are with the next challenge. Let me briefly explain the session, what we are going to do. We open without agenda. And I will invite those interested from the Young Generation programs, the Talent Award nominees, or the Peter Drucker Challenge participants. If you like, please join me on stage for your pitch. The pitch is going to be one sentence, ideally, to propose your topic that you like to speak about. Then the audience, everyone in the room, on Slido, will have the opportunity to vote on those proposed topics. And the 5 best ones, maybe 6 if we have enough time, will be able to deliver their talk that they pitched for. And they will have around 2 to 3, maximum 3 minutes to deliver their talk. After that, there's not going to be a voting on the quality of the pitches, but there will be a discussion. The discussion we will do in such a way that we won't just ask you to pose questions, because if you can come to the Drucker Forum, you can think and you can also make a statement. Okay? So you're not reduced, audience is not reduced to posing questions. For me, this is very important. One more thing to consider. If you pitch or if you deliver a talk, or if you give a statement from the audience, you ask a question, be brief and speak slowly. Why? Because people won't memorize what you said when you're trying to put facts and figures in as quickly as possible. That means if you have less time, you get slower and slower and more relevant and more relevant. So typically people tend to speed up if they know they have 2 minutes, so do the opposite. Time to start. So, I know quite a number of people from the audience have prepared pitches. Who wants to start with his pitch? Please, come and join me. You can also queue here. We have 2 microphones. And you would need to allow me the time to type in a title, and then you hand the microphone to the next person. Your stage.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Marcos Mascala from the Tokyo Institute of Technology in Japan. And I want to talk with you on how to never make a bad decision again. Thank you. Sorry, okay. The full pitch, Isabella?
That's
just
right.
The first phrase.
That's
right?
fine. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Next one. Please.
Hello, everyone. I'm Javor from Bulgaria, and I'm a father of a 4-year-old daughter. And today, I would like to talk to you about the future of our children, about the future of education. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Oluwaseun Oguntade. I'm from Germany. Moving from fear to faith, co-shaping the narrative of artificial intelligence that we share. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sebastian Woller. I'm from Hamburg, Germany. And I think I would like to base my presentation on the following question. Have you ever had a bad manager? So I know I have, and I have the feeling that others of you have had as well. And in my presentation, I'll just briefly like to point out 3 points based on Peter Drucker and his books, which I studied, what actually makes a manager bad and how one can improve it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Radu Ciocoiu. I'm coming from Romania, and I will try to speak to you about a certain phrase, which is empathy eats culture for breakfast. Thank you.
Hi, this is Mukund from India. And I want to pitch about the rethinking of AI, the need of AI to be human in a Viennese cafe setting, because that's the best place where you can form management theories or any other theory. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good morning to you all. I'm Raghunath from India. My pitch is going to be a bit prosaic. Will a robot society, if and when it comes into being, be built on the foundations of an unequal economic order? Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amwabing Ajimani Kansa. I'm from Ghana. I don't know how many of you have heard of Ghana. Awesome, okay, that's good, that's good. All right, so do you really want to live forever? That is the question. To live or not to live forever.
Thank you.
To be or not to be? Is this the question? Shouldn't it be to love or not to love? I'll see you later.
Hello, everyone. My name is George. I am from Greece, and I would like to talk you about 4 meta skills and meta virtues from Greek philosophers in order to stay competent at the edge of fourth industrial revolution. Thank you.
You have been working with humans and machines. Think of it. How would it be to work with humanoids, machines, and humans? Vote for me if you want to know about the operating model of tomorrow. And yes, my name is Kanika, so that you can vote me. Thank you.
Thank you. So I can take another 2 after you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Pranjali from India, and I just have one question to ask you. If you were a manager and you had to tell somebody that their next job is to build a system that would replace them, would you do it? How would you do it? Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Adarsh, and I'm from India. We are talking about the fear of what will happen when technology replaces humans. But the humans we are talking about here are not the 80% of the world that actually need technology to be more acceptable, accessible, and to their standards so that their lives can be improved and whose lives have already been cannibalized. So that's what I want to talk about, how technology is not being talked about for the 80% population of the world. Thank you.
Thank you. So, last one.
Yeah, hi there. My name is Thomas. I'm about to found an edtech startup, and I want to tell you how we intend to digitize education. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, prepare your cell phones and prepare to go onto Slido, slide.do. Just finished to write the last pitch. So, this is the risky part of the session chair, that you lose everything you typed in such a moment, but we have it. So the poll should be online. You join the session with Drucker 18, and then you go on to polls. You click Join Conference, and then you go on to polls, vote. And it might look like this. The screen that you will see on top. Can we switch to the other slide, please? Yeah. On top you see questions and polls, and you go on to polls, and this is where you can vote. One vote. Are you finished? You need time still? Is okay? Anyone still need time? Okay. I see still votes coming in, so I will just leave it open a few more moments. Well, that's interesting. Can you see the results? Okay. I'll make a countdown. 3, 2, 1, stop. Okay. Here we freeze the result. So, we have 120%. So the future of education, pitch number 2, will be speaking. Then empathy eats culture for breakfast will be speaking. Then, let's see. Do you want to live forever with 11%? And then we have, do I see this correctly? We have 3 with 7%. So we better start so we can get 6 talks in. And here comes the future of education, ladies and gentlemen.
So, thank you all for giving me this opportunity. I will talk for the future of education. The world is changing dramatically today. At my own workplace, we already have robots that are doing job that has been previously done by humans. We already have artificial intelligence. And these guys, they work 24/7, they don't go on vacation, they don't even go to toilet. So how do we prepare our children for that challenge? Well, I think that the only way is through education. Mr. Jack Ma, the creator of Alibaba, recently said, "Everything that we teach our children for the past 200 years, the machines will do better. And I think that he's right. Or as Mr. John Hagel yesterday said here at the Peter Drucker Forum, how did we lose our imagination and creativity? Well, we got to school, and then we became people who are passive receivers of information which needs to be memorized and repeated. So we must change the education system. But how do we do that? Well, I think that one way is through project-based learning, which is very similar as a concept to the Agile or Scrum for businesses. Basically, you put on a team of students together which work on a problem for a certain period of time. At the end, they must deliver a solution to a real-life problem in front of a real audience, just like in real life. Through this, they basically develop not only knowledge on the subject, but also teamwork, creativity, problem solving, cooperation, exactly the skills they will need in order to have an edge over the machines. And now comes the last question. What can we, or can you as future managers, do about that? Well, I think that we can do a lot. First, of course, we can start with our own selves and our own families. But as managers, we have a great deal of influence over our employees and within our companies. So we can push for the development of these skills for our employees. Once they have it, and once they understand their importance, they will pass it on to their children. Once both parents and children have this mindset, they will ask for that change at school. This way, we can help reshape the system. Thank you.
Thank you. So, let me get the microphone. We hear our next talk. The speaker has remembered empathy, it's culture for breakfast. Now we're like really curious what this is going to be. Your stage.
Hello again. Thank you very much for your voting. So one more time, I'm Radu. I'm coming from Romania, and I'm a corporate banker. Please remember my profession, because I will come back to this when I will during my speech. So, how to be human into a robot world? The question, the answer might be one word that's been heavily discussed these days, and this word is empathy. We heard a lot about empathy and its importance to our society, to our corporations. In fact, we had extremely nice and important examples from Jim Kane yesterday about this subject. Why? Because empathy is quite something only related to humans. Only humans can be empathic, only humans can understand and learn how to be empathic. Only humans can be genuinely empathic. Peter Drucker allegedly said that culture is strategy for breakfast. So I propose you to make a step further and look from a different perspective. Let's say empathy, it's culture for breakfast. What do I mean by that? So the big buzzword these days, yesterday, now, in all our lives is innovation, how we reach innovation, how we are innovative as persons, how us as an organization can be more innovative. And at the same time, we also learned the fact that communication within teams, it's highly important for this team, or for a certain team, to be innovative. We had extremely nice examples as well from Linda Hill yesterday from Harvard University to show what is the impact of communication with regards to innovation within teams. So the red line of my argument is the following. If we want to have innovative teams, we have to foster communication. If we want to have this, this aspect with regards to fostering communication, we have to focus on empathy. We have to think about empathy that is highly important for our corporate culture. I was telling you in the beginning that I'm a banker. And these days, the stereotypes say that bankers are more like results-oriented, profit-oriented, and not so empathic. So I say, if a banker is here on the stage and tells you that empathy is highly important, that means that is a must to have it in our society, in our organization. So what can we do to bring more empathy to our organizations? I say it's a very hard answer. Why is that? Because there are no recipes, and I cannot give recipes to that. But please, come to me, tell me your ideas, be empathic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I can invite our next speaker, and he will ask you, do you want to live forever?
Hi again. So, quick story. Before I came here, my grandmother and I were having a conversation about, she was complaining about joint aches. She's 82. She's complaining about joint aches and all sorts of things. I mean, she's growing old. And the first thing that came to mind was, at the time, I was writing this essay. So the first thing that came to mind was, how AI could possibly help solve this problem? And then I counter-thought that that could mean my grandmother could live forever. And I wouldn't want to hear my grandmother's whining all the time for the rest of my life. So I felt like there are limits to artificial intelligence. There are things it can do, and there are things we should encourage it to do. But the threat, for me, currently the world's population stands at 7.2 billion. And the threat is that if it's not just taking care of certain peripheral needs in the body, and it's taking care of key functions, that means we could possibly live forever. And if we live forever, that means we are going to have a case of overpopulation. And we have so many problems because of 7.2 billion. So multiply that by, I don't know, maybe infinity, and we could have more implications. So my solution is, it's now the onus lies on us to be intentional about our efforts to be human. I know it sounds ideal, it sounds idealistic and all of that, but we should ensure that AI performs the role it's supposed to perform. It's supposed to assist us, not take over our lives, and not take over main functions. It's supposed to help functions, but not take over functions. So by the time you're 82, like my grandmother, maybe you can adopt a cat. But just know that unlike that cat, you have one life. And so try to live that life as human as possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Inviting our next speaker, who will tell us how to never make a bad decision again. Your stage.
So we make a lot of bad decisions on a personal level or on a professional level. And usually these bad decisions, they are related to how we handle information. And Drucker talks about it in his book, Challenges of the Managers of the 21st Century, in the 4th chapter. So I identify 3 stages of handling information where it can make a mistake that will lead you to a bad decision. So the first one is getting information. The second one is analyzing information. And the third one is acting in accordance to information. In the first one, getting information, Drucker says that getting information from the outside would be the single most important thing that managers would do in the 21st century. And this is a very serious topic because we're building relationships with companies and with governments. There is such a high asymmetry of information. Some people know more than others. And if you ask me what a community is, for me a condition for that is where there's symmetry of information. And the second problem is analyzing information. So we should realize, according to Drucker, that there is implicit and explicit information, and we should give our own weights to that. The implicit information, feelings or empathy, are the human dimension of management. And sometimes we only look at the hard data. We have to give weights for this depending on the situation. And the third one is acting in accordance to information. So what Drucker says is that first, you don't have to act all the time. You have to realize when you have to act. And when you act, it should be according to the weights that you gave to the explicit and implicit information. So there's a phrase from Okakura Tenshin. He's a Japanese writer. And he says, "For life is an expression. Our inner unconscious actions, the utmost betrayal of our innermost thoughts." So if we follow these three stages and we pay attention to it, I don't think you can make a bad decision. Because at the worst case, if you know why you're doing something, if you know what are the consequences, you're just getting what I call expensive information. So usually you want low-risk information. But sometimes, if you're aware of what you're doing, if you're mindful, you're just paying a high price for information. So I hope that we're all mindful of our actions and of these three steps where we can fail, so that we can never make a bad decision again. But I still hope that we can get some expensive information. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will ask us, have you ever had a bad manager? Your stage.
Thank you. Once more, thank you for having me. So again, I'm going to address the question, have you ever had a bad manager? And I'm going to, well, I suggested earlier that I have 3 points, which I think are a main reason why we are seeing many bad managers. And perhaps it's also a solution. So I'll maybe start by giving a bit of context about myself. So I'm currently 24 years old and I study international management. And during the course of my studies, I tried to gain as much experience as possible in different sectors. So I worked with head of states, with top consultants, with bankers, different fields. And I just couldn't figure out exactly what made some managers really good, great, and what made others not so good. So I consulted my professor and she suggested that I should read Peter Drucker. So one book led to another. Peter Drucker wrote about 39 books. I couldn't read all of them, but I started studying his books and I decided to write my thesis about the art of management. Recommendations from Peter Drucker for top managers and presidents in the public and private sector. Doing this, I learned something. What really stood out is that management can be learned. And it's actually fairly easy, if I may say carefully, to learn. But there are a few things that can't be learned. And those are the things that really stood out from Peter Drucker to me. So one of them was integrity, the other one was character, and the other one is your value systems. So why I'm here today and what I really wanted to address is that in the future, if we're trying to somehow design our recruiting systems, let's just try to really also focus on the character of the people we're trying to employ, the future leaders, their characters, their value systems, and their integrity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'm calling our last speaker for today. If you were a manager, how would you tell your staff they're being replaced by robots? Now we're curious. Your stage.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So to answer this question, I think we have to ask another question. Is that to all the managers in the room and to everyone who has a manager in the room, which is basically all of us, do you feel that your staff is replaceable? Or do you feel that they are capable of evolving? And the question between whether somebody can be replaced or whether their role can evolve is what I feel forms the fundamental basis of this debate that has been ongoing for a while now on how artificial intelligence and machine learning is going to shape the future. And the funny part is, it's a pretty old question. In 1946, I wasn't alive in 1946. A few of you might have been. In 1946, when Peter Drucker visited the Mississippi Delta and watched the machines that would replace the cotton pickers, he said that it's so easy to consider only one side of this debate. You look at the point of view from the people who are making the profits. And oh yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, come on, we can certainly earn more. And then you look at the workers who are being displaced. and suddenly you pause. And then you think about something that, hey, these guys have been doing this for a long time. They actually know the best way to pick cotton. So who is the best person to tell you how to build a machine that picks cotton? Newsflash, it's the people who've been doing it for years and years and years. And isn't that central to how we, as a people, view AI? It's that either we see it as something that will replace a complete rung of an organization. So we want to make lower rungs, and I'm going to put this in inverted quotes, we want to make the lower rungs of our organizations redundant. But we want to make sure that, hey, we are significant. I mean, no one can replace us, right? Well, guess who else thought that in 1950? People who are going to soon start worrying for their jobs when Google rolls out its assistant, or when Tesla pulls out the first self-driving car. I mean, technology is never stagnant. Technology is constantly evolving. But technology is not as complex as the human mind. A code is as good as its coder. So what I will say is that you can't replace something as complex and beautiful as the human mind with a set of commands and an algorithm. But what you can do is complement it. And when you complement it, the two things side by side will take you to a place where neither of them alone could have. And if we'd only take this view, if we'd see the future of robotics and automation and technology with this viewpoint, that we're not replacing anybody, we're not trying to form a divide, but we're trying to build a world that's going to be so much more than any of these two could have done together, then maybe, just maybe, our kids are going to be like, yeah, okay, maybe you guys didn't completely mess up the world for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Every time, every time I'm amazed and thrilled of the freshness and the depth of the thinking that I hear at these Barcamps. And we're going to continue with the freshness and depth of the thinking among all of us, which means I will invite the speakers back to the stage. And I invite you to ask questions for real, not on Slido this time, because I won't do any Slido management here. In parallel, we have a microphone in the room. Is this correct? That will circle around? Do we? Yeah. Yes, all of you. So, you were the speakers. Now you will face the questions. So, anyone with a first question or with a first statement?
I have a question for Sebastian. I was curious about the three characteristics for hiring and to prevent bad managers. Can you give an example of a good interview question to ask to make sure we get those traits of integrity and so on?
We have a second microphone here. Yeah. Can you hand it? Yeah, thank you.
All right, so first of all, thank you very much for the question. I think that's also a great question. So what I experienced during many of my recruiting processes or interviews were mostly, example, when I was trying to aspire for investment banking, they would mostly ask me something in relation of theft. So how would I deal if information was stolen or if there was confidential, something going into a negative aspect? I think it would be very interesting if managers and top managers would actually ask the people they're recruiting to describe their own character, to really describe their integrity by themselves, because it's hard to really pose a question that somehow suggests an answer. So we should also give the people we're interviewing the freedom to describe themselves, who they are and what they stand for, and what they understand a value system to be.
Thank you.
Hi, my question is to you. I forgot your name. Yeah, Marcus. So you told about how information should be properly assessed, processed, and then make decisions, right? I have two questions on that. One, there is so much abundance of information everywhere that two things happen. One, you don't have enough time to process the information to make sure that there exists symmetry, because while the time you do it, there's more information flowing in. And second, how do you distinguish the information which is right which is fake? So that's a huge possibility in the platform of information that we have today. And third, it's not that you can make every decisions by taking your time, sitting back, thinking, and then giving out your decisions, right? There's a thing called reactive, and you react most of the cases. And bad decisions are made when you react, not when you're proactive. So how do you propose to summarize, too much negative information or fake information, reactive decisions, and how do you maintain symmetry?
So my background is computer science, and there's a thing called neural networks, which is a computer structure that you can input data and take decisions. So when you're training a neural network to make decisions, what usually you don't want is redundancy, redundant information. So that's very related, if you think of yourself as a neural network, to try to go where the information is less redundant. So if you're here at the Peter Drucker Forum every year, you can try to go and do something different. And you can measure that by seeing how uncomfortable you are in the situation. So that's one way to get information. And to know if the information is fake or not, then also for the neural network, you need validation. So you see the information that you use to take the decision, see what is the output, and then compare it with reality. And then you update the information that you have. So sometimes you have to react, but when you're reacting, usually it's because you don't have enough information to take a decision. And if you don't have any information, you don't have to be guilty that you took the wrong decision. You have to feel guilty or feel uneducated if you consciously ignore the information or if you consciously analyze the information wrongly because you're prejudiced or biased.
Thank you. Anne.
Hi, I have a question on our replaceability. I'm here in the middle. Hi. So I think you're in a unique position of being able to code and develop what is coming next. So what are you thinking about as you're designing potentially your own replaceability or your own partnership?
Thank you for asking that. So yes, you're right. I am an engineer by training, and I work in software. So one thing you learn when you're building systems is, number one, it's a very long process, which involves a lot of iterations, because you have to try, I'm going to try to keep this as non-technical as possible. You have to try and train a system with multiple data sets again and again and again. And the funny thing is, the system can only learn what you tell it. So if you look at, I believe it was Amazon, you look at companies who are trying to implement hiring practices on existing data sets, and they're being accused of bias because the current setup already had an inbuilt bias. So when you talk about the future of where computing and AI is going to be taking us, you really have to look at the fact that building an AI system needs people who know the field so thoroughly and who need to keep checking that system. It's like you're a teacher and you've taught the kids something, but you can't just let them go. You have to take exams, you have to take more exams to put them through university, to give them a degree, and even then we mess up, right? So it's pretty much the same thing. It's a constant iterative process. So I really do believe that no system is ever completely finished, because you have to keep modifying that system's definition of, say, right and wrong. And you're the only person, or we are the only people who can actually do that. So I hope that answered the question.
Thank you. More statements and questions. Yeah, behind you. Mm-hmm.
I have a question regarding future of education. So given the fact that many people in the world, many children in the world still don't have access to education, it's a sustainable development goal for 2030 by the UN. Also, the education system, methodologies, and approaches across the world are very inconsistent. So according to you, what should be the future of education given these scenarios?
This is really a very important question. And in this respect, while I was talking about education, yes, there is a certain risk of AIs or robots taking work that has been previously done by human beings. But in this respect, technology, I think, can help a lot, because there are so many places in the world that people and children cannot reach education. In this respect, technology is something that can really make a difference for these people. So it can make education available to them. It can make it easily at an affordable price. And there are such programs. We actually yesterday, if you have listened at the first panel, he was talking about transforming the educational system in India. So this can be done. it can be achieved, and in this respect, technology and the young people like this who are building it, they can help a lot in this respect. I think that this is one of the possible solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. More, yes. Here we go. Sylvia.
Statement, maybe not a question, but statement. Thank you very much for this presentation, for this speech. Do you want to live forever? Of course. Everybody would like to be beautiful, rich, and live forever. But of course, it's funny, on Sunday, I have just read the article that Google is just acquired the company startups who are working just about expanding the life. And something interesting is that they could expand nematodes life 2 times. The question is, at the end of the day, about the quality of the life, maybe not how long we are going to live, but the quality of the life really matter. And going through one book about the mortal disease of one girl in one family, a doctor said that if you cannot expand days in your life, try to put more life into one day. So I think it is just connected with your last sentence that live more human in every day. It is possible. Yeah, it's better. So thank you very much.
A little addition.
Thank you.
A little addition towards, yeah, okay. So yesterday as well, during one of the sessions, we were reminded about the fact that Georg Hegel said, one thing we learn from history is that we never learn from history. When we heard about, or when the world heard about nuclear energy, I wasn't born, and we saw the devastation because we were constantly experimenting and seeing what it could do. Oh wow, okay, we've got a new toy, let's see what it can do. But and that's the same approach we're taking with AI. We watched the nuclear energy blow up, and it literally blew up. But with what we have now, we have the benefit of hindsight. And so now, I think, as people and governments need to be more proactive to ensure that companies are not just innovating as a new cool, like, okay, I want to, yeah, okay, I'm Steve Jobs, I'm Zuckerberg, but we are innovating to solve actual, like, real human needs. And I think that's where, so like you're saying, I feel those are the extra things that can be done to help maintain our humanity, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you very much. You can keep it for so long. I just remember Charles Handy. I accompanied him to an entrepreneurship debate 2 days ago, and you told the story of Frankenstein and asked the question why Frankenstein created the monster. And you answered, because he could. And you urged, maybe we should be more mindful of what we should do and what should not do. So maybe this chimes into this one. I didn't want to delay. Yeah, we have the next question.
Okay, so about empathy, empathize. Empathy, when you were talking, I felt in this world where everyone seems so pressed on every side, empathy seems more and more like a choice, and a deliberate choice. So in your banking world, for instance, I wonder, how do you empathize, especially when you hardly have so much one-on-one contact with humans and you're interacting more with money and, the figures. And from your experience, how do you think we as humans can make more and more deliberate choice to empathize with others?
Okay. Thank you very much for the question. In fact, I do agree. Empathy, it's a matter of choice. And that's my speech and my pitch about it, because if it wouldn't have been a matter of choice, it would be much harder to think to change something. But coming back to your question with regards to how, as a bankers, we are empathizing, or how we should empathize with the customer. I think this is also extremely important to put on the stage as well. Why? Because in the end, business is done between people, right? So it's not something done by machines. So the discussion can be very long, why business is done through people and not by machines. And we've seen a lot of examples in our past why it's better to be between people. So when two people are communicating, and I'm coming back to my argument from the pitch, when two people are communicating, in order to identify the right code to transmit the message and receive the message, I think that empathy, it's a key thing. Without it, part of your message, part of what you are transmitting or what you are receiving will not be decoded. So I think in banking, as in any other business, having empathy means decoding the right message from the person that you have in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you, very inspiring. Oh, filming and speaking, this is real multitasking here.
Yeah, so my question is to Marcos and Rashti, both of them, because this question relates to 2 points. Should we actually waste time on imbibing creativity and imagination to AIs, like through machine learning or whatever? Or should we stop at that and say that AI was supposed to assist us and not to be like a human? Should we keep on doing this and wasting time on creativity?
I think both will end up happening. So I just saw that AI, they made a script of a movie and they actually enacted the movie, and it's very funny. So there are people creating AI that, for example, tries to emulate empathy. So in my university, there are some researchers that try to identify which kind of emotions you have and set up a negotiation. So you can actually now negotiate with a machine that reads your emotions and can see how low you can go on the price. So at this moment, these are emulations, and I think there will be a market for AI that emulates or that maybe even has creativity and empathy. So I don't see it much as a choice, but I think it will be happening. We could have regulations on that, on AI, if AI should be able to read your emotions. So I definitely think we should regulate it, and I don't think we should halt research on these topics. But we should discuss it here and regulate it, because it can be a very powerful tool.
Thank you. I saw there was another, yeah? And then behind you is just the next one. All right, please.
I got a question for all of you. All of you were talking about the future, about our future, and my question is, where's privacy of people to be placed? As we know from 2013, Edward Snowden said that all the big national security organizations are watching us, Big Brother and Caring Mother are big themes. Where should privacy be placed?
Thank you.
I'm taking it first because my essay talks about that brief a bit. So I think, it's my personal opinion, I think the issue of the whole, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the whole concept of getting into our lives, or the excuse, maybe we should say that, the excuse for getting into our lives is so that the user experience will be better, right? I think that's what they say. That's what the coders say. So, okay, yeah. So I think that's where it comes from. But, and that's where I feel, for example, I gave an example of how in determining, for example, for Fortune 500 companies, rather than just checking profits, margins, checking maybe office spaces and all of that, there should be a factor that looks at how responsible the company is with data or with information. I think that's very important, because right now, currently, the Fortune 500 companies are being dominated by tech companies. So I think that's part, not all of them, I'm not saying everybody, but with regards to the tech companies, there should be that component. Because it's been done with every sector. It's been done with bioengineering, it's been done with pharmacy, it's been done with all pharmaceuticals, it's been done with almost everything. So why not AI?
Sorry, please. No,
I'm just going to add slightly that there are two tracks to this, right? One is the commercial data, which you sort of use in your applications and your web services for a user experience, and then one's a national security viewpoint where you want to monitor your citizens or whoever it is that you believe would go ahead and do something detrimental. And with the privacy debate, as someone who builds systems, I'll tell you that systems are tools. So what the actual question comes down to is who has their finger on the button? Who is the person who is responsible for the data being collected? Who is the person who decides that, okay, we need to monitor so-and-so people? At least with the commercial aspect, they're hidden, but they do ask questions of consent. Do you consent to your data being given to these organizations? Do you consent to have something used for user experience? But in a lot of cases, it comes down to responsibility and ownership. Like he said, somebody is going to have to step up and take responsibility.
So I think that the dichotomy between technology and privacy that you have to choose, it's a false dichotomy. And living in Japan, I saw that these things of having privacy and having these tools that technology can give us are reachable. So the Japanese, they have very big care with their privacy, but they can still enjoy what technology has been giving us with big data. And second. Yeah. So coming back to my speech, what I could recommend that you should think daily is to seek relations where there's symmetry of information. So thinking if, like in our job, we know what you want from me, in which time frame, and in which format, and knowing also which information you own to me. And that should be with the government, should be with the technology companies. So if we're more mindful about the fairness of symmetry of information, I think this shouldn't be a choice, having nice things and having privacy. We can have both.
Okay, thank you. Any more? Yep.
I would also like to add. So I think that at least for now, privacy is still a matter of choice. So basically, it is up to you, up to us, to decide if we want to allow these big tech companies to have our data or not. And in this respect, I think that what happened with Facebook and Cambridge Analytica is actually something good, because this raised the attention of the whole world to this topic. And basically, everybody became much more aware of what risks they are taking by deliberately giving all their data to these big tech companies. And still, coming back to my topic for the education, I'm thinking that this is also one of the most important things that now teachers should teach our children, to understand what they are doing when they are on the internet. And because I think that little children, they don't even get it. They don't know what's going on, and that their data is given to these tech companies, and they can do whatever they want with it. So basically, this is one of the things that should be taught at schools at the moment. And I think that this will become more and more important for the future.
Thank you. There's another one. Yeah, please, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
So obviously, I mean, this is a huge debate at the moment. Of course, we also always look at Facebook and Google and how they're managing our data. But I think also it's important to look at the smaller companies, because in smaller companies, the policies are also not, I'll say they don't have the measures at the moment to actually really take care of our data, which is a big problem. I think Europe is taking a good step at the moment with trying to enforce some regulations for the time being, until we can't really find a solution. So the GDPR, I mean, it's taking a while, and it's mostly being enforced on big companies, but perhaps in the future, or hopefully, it will be something that's is just naturally understood by companies, also by small ones and big ones, that you have to respect the privacy and data of consumers.
Thank you. Okay, then we have one more statement or question.
Thank you.
Question, okay.
And my question can be answered by anybody on stage, and it touches on the empathy that you guys mentioned and the technology that both of you also touched on. And lastly, on what he was going to talk on, I guess, the 80% of the people who are most hit by the implications of technology. So basically, how can we leverage empathy and technology to dissuade the fears and calm down the anxieties of those that are out there that cannot come in to forums like this, or fora like this, rather. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Who wants to start?
I will repeat the same thing, sorry for being repetitive, but I think the question's still in symmetry of information. So when you're using an app, if you're a teenager, you don't know that there are hundreds of psychologists, engineers that engineer this app so it's addictive. And that's a word that really describes on social media. So it should be clear what are the intentions of these companies for you and what your intentions and what you want to get for them. And you should engage with companies that you know are for a common good and that you identify with your values with.
So, sorry to call you, to be specific, by 80%, I guess, by those in the bottom of the pyramid, as Prahalad mentioned, who named them rather, they're poor and they're not so well-to-do people, so to speak, if you get my point.
Can I have can I chime in briefly? I know that you've just asked the question and you have a very beautiful answer. Would you mind to share it? Sorry guys. It's lovely.
I wasn't expecting that. But thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, please come.
Basically, so my name is Oluwaseun again. Basically, I was going to talk about how we can change the narrative we have about artificial intelligence. I have the feeling, coming from the streets, so to speak, it's more fear-based narrative that we share: job loss, wealth inequality, privacy intrusion, identity crisis, all these buzzwords. I think they describe the current state of the narrative we have. And I personally believe we have this disconnect between what we know are the possibilities of what AI can afford us in the future and what the average man on the street of Vienna, the average taxi driver that brought me here this morning, of the fear he has about losing his job, or the average woman in Bangladesh, in the sweatshops of Bangladesh, afraid of automation and machines. So I feel there's this disconnect. So basically, how can we move from this fear-based narrative to a more positive one? And I'm proposing a three-step solution, which I termed E²C, so to say. A play on Einstein's equation of relativity, of course. So the first E, I would say, is empathy. Again, coming back to what I said. Empathy now is different from sympathy, as we all know. It's about sharing in their fears. So I think the German word captures it better, Mitgefühl, to go into the worries and the anxieties and to calm it down, to let them know we are just like them. Okay, I think that's the first stage. The second one is education, of course. Okay, and this time around, it's to demystify AI in all its entirety, to make it more accessible to them, to help them open up to the possibilities that AI can afford all of us. And we might be surprised how much we will learn also from them, as you touched on during the machine cutting days, how much you need these people also. And the last C, which I would say co-shaping, to co-shape the positive narrative, faith-based narrative for the future, which comes through a dialogue between the policymakers, the business school leaders, the business leaders, and young people like us, and the civil society, the 80% in the bottom of the pyramid. A dialogue, and this branch out, and what comes out of that is a co-shaped narrative that is more positive and more, so every one of us can look forward to the future of AI. And if you ask me, okay, Olu, what do I do? Okay, Monday morning, 9 o'clock. By the way, that's another Peter Drucker quote. I would say Monday morning, 9 o'clock, when you sit at your desk, I'll ask myself, am I part of those who help propagate this fear-based narrative, or I go into the society, I go to those that are out there who are most hit by the implications of increase in technological prowess that we have, and help dissuade their fears and more increase their faith in the future of technology. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was really beautiful. Stay. Actually, we ran out of time, and I'm really harsh on that one. As you can see, it says 000. So I would say thank you very much for coming, and we can all have faith in the future if you guys are shaping it. Thank you very much. Your stage.